let the sunlight fool you. Things live out in those woods, day as well as night. Just at night, there ain't nothing gonna save you. Can't see where you're going, but it can see. It knows what it wants, and it's gonna take you.
I'm not going to do something like really cheeky this year for the holiday season. It's been a really wild couple of years. A couple of things have changed about the world. Viruses have come and gone and maybe coming back. It's just time to celebrate what we have and what we already love. So in the spirit of that, what I want to do this month is to take you through my top 10 favorite films of all time. Are they all horror films? Well, that's a little debatable. But in large part, yes. Because that's kind of just who I am. Maybe I'm shallow, or maybe I'm focused. Depends how you look at it. But the horror genre is home. Before I get into number 10, which is the one we'll be covering today, I want to just quickly go through the remainder of my top 25 list, which is something that I keep updated fairly constantly. Although it used to be this list didn't change much, but in recent years it's begun to change quite a lot, and that's a good sign that there are some amazing films coming out. With my normal caveats that you have to look beyond America, and sometimes you have to look for older films that you missed because there's some real hidden gems out there. At number 25, we have The Hazing. Number 24 is Biozombie. Number 23 is Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. Number 22, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from Tobe Hooper, one of my very favorite directors, but guy who honestly, his entire career fascinates me, but he lands at number 22 on my list. Number 21 is also a Lucio Fulci film called House by the Cemetery, which I absolutely adore. At number 20, we have Jason X. Not particularly a great horror film, but one of the most fun films I've ever experienced. Number 19 belongs to Night of the Living Dead, George Romero's classic, the ultimate comfort food movie for me. And number 18 is Captive Wild Woman. Now, Captive Wild Woman is not a better film than Night of the Living Dead, but if you want to see me smile, you probably don't want to see me smile, but if you did want to see me smile, just turn on Captive Wild Woman. I love every damn second of that movie. In 17th place is Decade, the Rajesh Ghai action film that came out just a couple years ago. This is the best action film ever made, in my opinion, hands down. I love everything about it. It flies by, even though it's 3 hours long. Just amazing. And number 16 is The Empty Man, a sublime experience from beginning to end. And number 15 goes to Exorcist 3, William Peter Blatty's brilliant adaptation of his own novel. It's not the novel. It's a different animal in a sort of way, but everything about it is superlative. At 14, we have Cat People, the original 1942 film, not that abysmal 1980s remake or the inevitable post-millennial remake. What can be said? Cat People is brilliant filmmaking. It's a scary, moody, atmospheric, thoughtful, spooky film. Number 13, ironically enough, belongs to Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, which is my favorite of the sequels to the original Friday the 13th, and is just a powerhouse of mean, nasty behavior. At number 12, The Haunting of Julia. Long a film I have beat a drum for. It got a great release this year. Actually got many great releases this year. It's a great adaptation of this Straub novel, but it's, in my opinion, probably the best film about a haunting that has ever been made. In number 11 place, we have Hereditary, Ari Aster's brilliant postmodern demonology film. I love this film with all my heart, and it actually pains me that it's only at 11 on the list. But as we go through the month, I think you'll understand why even a film as great as Hereditary can't quite crack the top 10. All right, number 10 on my list, and the film we're going to cover today, 1960's Black Sunday. The great Mario Bava, one of the best horror film directors of all time, at the peak of his gothic perfection. People talk about Kubrick when they want to talk about perfect film images and sequences that have a painterly approach to cinema. Nothing in Kubrick's catalog, in my opinion, can match the opening moments of Black Sunday. Black Sunday is impressionistic, it's gothic, it has a German expressionist streak, but at the same time feels more like the gothic romance novels of the 1960s. I mean that as a very big positive, because those novels, although they don't have the overt horror elements that you might expect or want from today's literature, they had mood and atmosphere galore that is just delicious. You'll get drunk on the atmosphere of those novels. And Black Sunday captures all that perfectly. Now, it really doesn't help that you have the gorgeous and uber talented Barbara Steele in the lead role, or actually in dual lead roles. Her performance as Princess Vajna is absolutely as good as anything we got from any of the classic horror thespians, whether you're talking about Lee or Lugosi or Karloff. It is just a sublime performance that really sets the standard for villains and heroes after this point. Some images, like the first time we see Barbara Steele at the edge of a graveyard with wind blowing her hair, holding a pair of large European dogs on leashes. It's the kind of image that cinema was created to convey. The movie never misses a beat. It flies by. It's such a fast, fun movie. The opening execution scene, which has been imitated a whole lot, and I continue to see it redone for tons of modern films, has never been done better. The torture and execution of Vajna the Witch is stunning. It's one of those scenes that on paper I think could have gone either way. You could see that and say, well, that's really comic booky and kind of feels false. But in Bava's hand, it's kind of like a dark, beautiful fairy tale. And it sets up the movie perfectly because the movie kind of asks you to ride this wave between modern sensibilities and classic sensibilities. It takes place in the old world, and yet it doesn't try too hard to make itself obviously part of that world. It feels very modern in its sensibilities. And I think being created in 1960, the same year Psycho came out, it really stands as probably the last great classically themed horror movies. Because after this point, you really couldn't do it. And by the time you get to Night of the Living Dead coming out at the end of the decade, that's completely lost. So we had this brilliant little final coda to the traditional horror film, and it's called Black Sunday. If you've never seen Black Sunday, there's no excuse not to fix that immediately. There's some great home video releases of different versions of the film, both the European and the American version of the film from Kino Lorber. It's available streaming everywhere that streams movies, and probably even in a few illegal avenues that are free for you. That might be where you're watching me right now. Why you wouldn't jump on this film, I have no idea. It has all the elements that you should want if you're a horror fan. One thing I want to mention before I go about this film. A lot of films, and I usually like it, have a very fatalistic streak to them. And Black Sunday actually does not. Black Sunday is actually a really hopeful film that encourages you to revel in its delights, but leaves you on a note that good will ultimately prevail. And as much as I can be a dark themes guy, and I kind of like when things are twisted and don't come out necessarily for the better for all characters involved, or any characters involved. At the same time, I have to say, in this film, because it is a delicious dark fairy tale, just like my favorite film of all time, by the way, I have to say that makes it all that much more special. Go see Black Sunday. If you have a repository screening anywhere around you this Halloween season, there is not a better film to see at this time of the year. If not, that's cool. Crank up the Blu-ray player, throw the disc in fresh out of its envelope from Amazon, and get it on. Because you cannot go wrong with the great Mario Bava, first off, and you certainly can't go wrong with his gothic masterpiece.